Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're talking about the return of Vince McMahon. At the time of recording, we're just a day from the official return of Vince McMahon to WWE, and I can't say I'm not surprised at the comeback. I couldn't imagine Vince staying away from pro wrestling that long. I said in my resolutions for the year, I think Vince needs to find a new hobby. Unfortunately, he doesn't look like he did. What does this mean for WWE? Well, we have some things that have come out since he's officially announced his return. First, he brought back 3 board members with him, kicked 3 board members out. I don't know their names, but I know one of the ones that got kicked out was the one leading the investigation against him, so that's bad optics already. Apparently, quote unquote, he's not going to be involved in the day-to-day. That's still going to fall under Triple H's regime. Which, take that with a grain of salt. A guy that's known to be an egomaniac and a control freak, I don't know that he's going to let off of controlling the company that he feels that he built from the ground up. I do expect at some point he's going to put his hands back into that. Now, what does that mean for everybody else? Does that drive Triple H away from the company? He seems to have built up some good shows, and Raw and SmackDown and NXT have been much better since Triple H has taken over than they were before he took over as head of creative. It's been very interesting, at the very least, I would say. I'm not saying it's all been great, but the progress is there. You can see the show getting better and better. The storylines are better and better. We're getting to see more wrestlers that we want to see. And that's part of the things, some of the things I do want to bring up. First up, guys that Triple H brought back that I don't know that Vince McMahon would have. Guys like Johnny Gargano and especially William Regal. Now, I'm not saying that William Regal and Vince McMahon have a bad relationship. Regal praised McMahon several times on his podcast while he was still technically working for AEW, so I don't think that it's going to be acrimonious. However, there was a reason that Vince let him go. Now, whether that be his ties to Triple H and being too close to that product, or just that he wanted to change, how is he now going to work with him again? Is Vince going to be okay with William Regal having a high-profile role? I've heard it said millions of times, and Vince has even said it himself in interviews that I've seen, it's about business, not personal. So whether he likes William Regal or not, is he going to keep him? Is he going to keep a guy like Johnny Gargano? Or is he going to let LA Knight stay LA Knight? Or is he going to force him back to being a Max Dupree? Is he going to release some of the guys like Jonah that have, or Bronson Reed, that have left and came back, or Braun Strowman? Is he going to re-release those guys that he didn't think fit on his roster originally? Only time will tell with that. I'm hoping that he can keep away from the creative, or if he is involved, it's a very minor role of it. The main thing that we hear that he's there for is to help facilitate a sale, which, even thinking about that, being a wrestling fan as long as I have been, and being that my entire life, my entire viewing history of WWE has been with Vince McMahon in charge. I started watching in '83. He had already taken over from his father. Now, I was 6 by then, so I was alive while his father was in charge of the company, but I didn't watch at that time. I wasn't a fan just yet. However, my life of knowing the WWE, besides these past few months, and it could say that, Triple H and Stephanie were going to be the successors either way, Vince McMahon's always been in control sans these last few months. So it's hard for me to fathom Vince McMahon selling his company. With that being said, the prime candidates, I would think, would be Amazon, Disney Plus, or Disney in general, and NBC Universal. One, Amazon, they seem to be branching out and trying to make a bigger splash in the streaming market. I believe they have the rights for the NFL Sunday Ticket. Adding the rights to something like WWE is going to give them a bigger market share in the streaming world. Disney basically has 3 streaming platforms they could put it on. They could put it on Hulu. There was already a relationship with WWE and Hulu. They could put it on ESPN Plus. They could put it on Disney Plus. And they could split up the shows. They could put SmackDown on Hulu, Raw on ESPN Plus, NXT on Disney Plus, or however they see fit. With that as well, they could also move the programming to the channels that they own. They could put Raw on ESPN. SmackDown on ESPN2, specials on ABC. I think that's one of the prime bidder. It seems to be the one that everyone thinks is going to be the front runner for it. The one I think would honestly be the front runner is one that he's had a relationship and they've had a relationship with for a long time, and that's NBC Universal. NBC Universal owns USA Network, they own Peacock, they've long had relationships with Vince McMahon, and much like I said with Amazon and Disney, they're going to want to put their stamp and get this IP for their streaming services. That's the name of the game nowadays, and television is what you could get, what IPs you can have on your streaming. And I think NBC Universal is going to be the biggest suitor. I think Vince McMahon is going to give them basically right to refuse. So let's say Disney says, we'll give you $7 million or $7 billion. He's going to go to NBC Universal and say, this is what they're offering, can you match it? I think that's going to be the option. It's, like I said, this is going to be a very interesting thing. The one thing I will say about corporate entities getting involved, I was alive for the AOL Time Warner merger, which basically wiped out WCW, or was one of the contributing factors. Ted Turner no longer being in charge of WCW made WCW go away. Now, that's not saying that WWE isn't more profitable than WCW ever was, or a better IP now than WCW was at that time, especially owning all that back catalog. There could come a point where WWE no longer exists because they no longer make money. And who's going to be put in charge? Is a guy like Triple H going to still run it? Are they going to hire some people like WCW did, guys like Jim Herd, who struggled to keep WCW relevant when it was first bought? A very interesting time in my opinion, and I'm going to be very shocked to see what's going forward. As for the wrestlers, what do you do if you're coming up to be a free agent? If you're in WWE, do you sign a long-term contract not knowing where you're going to go? Do you go to AEW because it seems to be more stable right this moment? I don't know. I did see something, and this kind of ties into this, that the president was talking about the no-compete clauses in contracts and trying to do away with that, which I think will be a major game changer in itself. It's going to change the way companies decide. I don't think WWE will have mass firings anymore. I think they'll do something more like, if you have a year left in your contract, they're just not going to put you on television and pay you for that year just to cool you down from going to the other company the night after you get released. So yeah, there's a lot of balls being juggled right now. These next few months and probably next few years are going to be very interesting, and I'm kind of excited, also kind of trepidatious to see what's going to happen going forward. I do know one thing, and this is fully tongue-in-cheek. The first thing that Vince McMahon said when he got back in office, and I'm going to do a bad Vince McMahon quote here, or impersonation. Who the hell fired Mandy Rose? Just saying. With that being said, that's a joke, but in a way, how do you now, as a company, justify letting Vince come back in and be put in a high position of power when you just let Mandy Rose go for her quote-unquote risque material that she was selling? This is a guy that literally was accused of assaults and accused of paying off women to hide extramarital relationship. I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't get the video kicked off of YouTube, but I'm just saying, they become very hypocritical at this point. So yeah, there's that too. Well, that being said, it's a very interesting time. I don't know where it's going to go. I'm going to keep giving you my editorial comments as news breaks on it. Hopefully you enjoy this. Let me know what you think. Who do you think is going to be the buyer? Put it down in the comments. While you're there, smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of Heel Heat.